Everyone joining us today. Today we're going to be talking to Lorena from the Peso a Peso. So if you guys are here on the replay, just want to let you guys know that if you go see it on your desktop, you can actually put it to 2x speed because maybe you don't have 30 minutes, but you do have some 15 minutes that you can spare to hear her great story. And so Lorena is an immigrant who came to the United States, and so I'm so excited to have her here with us today. Let me see if I can get her on the line. Lorena, if you can please ask to join. So this is so exciting because she came as an immigrant to the United States, and I don't have that personal story, so I wanted to bring her on and share her story so that we can all see what it's like for comes to the country. It's super easy for us who have a social security, who's born here, and we take some things for granted and some processes for granted. Hola Lorena, ¿cómo estás? So
Hola.
just as a preview, guys, this is going to be a Spanglish, a bilingual conversation. So it's going to go in and out between Spanish and English, and we're just going to roll with it.
That's right. How are you, Maribel?
Bien, bien, ¿cómo estás tú?
Oh, muy bien. Un poco nerviosa, mi primer IG Live, así es que ¡qué emoción!
Así que, Lorena, ¿te quieres introducir un poquito?
Yep. Hi, guys. Lorena Muñoz. Soy chilena, nacida y criada ya, pero me vine a Estados Unidos a los 26 años, ya hace bastante tiempo. Soy ingeniero comercial y acá en Estados Unidos he tenido varios trabajos ayudando a la comunidad hispana en non-profits. I was in banking as well. And my latest thing is I'm a money coach for a non-profit organization here in Winston-Salem. So I've been doing a lot in the past 20 years, but it has not been easy.
Thank you for that great introduction. And for everyone who's joining us over from Lorena's page, my name is Maribel Francisco. I'm here from Our Wealth Matters, and I'm a money coach. So it was great connecting with Lorena and getting to hear her story, and I thought there was something that we could all benefit from. So do you want to talk about a little bit about, the way we're going to go about this is past, present, future, and we're going to talk a little bit about Lorena's story and how it was arriving to the United States and, what led you to come over.
Okay. Well, my story is not, I cannot say it was a lot of struggle to come to the US. I was never kind of something that I wanted. I thought I was going to live in Chile forever, but I like to travel. So when I finished college, I got my degree in business and administration from a prestigious university, la Universidad Católica de Chile. And ingeniero comercial, so my life was in Chile, but I guess the power, the universe had something different for me. I got a scholarship to the Rotary Foundation, and I came to the US not knowing where I was coming. So I had no idea where North Carolina was. Actually, when I was applying for the scholarship, I thought I was applying to Australia, to go to Australia. And when they told me, oh, congratulations, you won the scholarship, you're going to be going to North Carolina. And I'm like, North Carolina? Is there a North Carolina in Australia? And they say, no, that's next year. And I'm like, oh, darn it. And she asked, do you want me to pull the papers and you apply again? It's like, oh no, this is a scholarship. I'm taking it no matter where it takes me. And I came here, and in that trip, I met who was going to be my husband. And so we fall in love, but I had no idea about staying in the country illegally. I had no idea about immigration status or anything. I only knew that I had a student visa, and I had to go back like 2 or 3 months later. I couldn't stay in the country. So I went back to Chile, and my husband followed me, and a couple months later, we got married in Chile. So I got him to my country, and which is funny, he was illegal because he was working with a tourist visa in my country. He was working under my name. So he's probably one of those few gringos that has that experience. But what happened, there was a lot of economic unrest in Chile, and he thought that it was going to be better for us to move to the US. So we came, and here's where a funny piece of the story happened. Mi nombre completo es Lorena del Pilar Muñoz Herrera. Now you can Google me in Chile. But when I moved here, my husband didn't tell me that the American women usually takes their husband's last name.
Mhm.
So when we are like arriving in Miami, like 5 in the morning, they start calling me, but I thought it was him, so Mrs. Holiday. And I was like, I was telling my husband, oh, come on, they're calling you. And I thought, no, I think they're calling you. I was like, how come? And I go to the front desk in immigration and I say like, welcome, Mrs. Holiday. And I'm like, who's that? It's like, oh, that's you now. It's like, no, I'm not. And she's like, oh, yes, you are now Lorena Holiday. And I'm like, no, that's impossible. Like, what happened to my name? I'm Lorena de Pilar Muñoz Herrera. So no, so for 2 years I had to be like an American Lorena Holiday, which brought me some problems because as I started working, I remember catching my first check. This is the time of no direct deposit that I remember. And when I went to the bank with my first ever American check, I went and cashed it. And I thought it was like it's taking a while. Why are they it's taking more than 5-10 minutes? And the lady at the register was calling my manager because, and this is, I didn't know what racism was or the issues of being Latina or brown color, what it really meant. And this person was calling my manager, but because he was, how can she have that last name? She doesn't look like a Holiday. So I still remember till this day, I remember the whole thing. Then I went back to the office and my coworker said, Lorena, were you at the bank? And I said, yeah, is everything okay? I'm like, well, I guess, I don't know. It took forever to get my check cashed. So you know what? They were calling to verify that you were you. And so that was my first encounter with discrimination. And I've been very lucky in general that hadn't that much going on, not a lot, but every once in a while, someone in the Latino aisle will ask me which kind of hot sauce I could recommend, and I'm like, I don't need with spicy food. I have no idea. And people asking me like, but aren't you Mexican? It's like, more than once I told them, did you know that there's 22 countries that where Spanish is spoken, and people, come on, they could look like me, but not everyone is also this education, telling people that we are from different cultures, different countries. It's been a constant though in my life.
Yeah, no, I definitely get you. I remember traveling to the East Coast and they were like, "Oh, what's your cultural background?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm Hispanic, like I'm from Mexican descent." And they're like, "Oh, we didn't know. I don't know what Hispanics this person knew, but they were like, "Oh, all the Hispanics I know are light skin. Like I didn't know there was brown skin Hispanics." And I was like, "Oh, well, we exist." This is us. Hi, I'm Maribel, from the Hispanic community. And yeah, you kind of become like a representative to your whole culture, and it's like that's not right. There's many of us, like you said, we come in all different shapes and sizes and from different cultures and countries, and we all have our cultural norms and our own accents that we speak. We're not like all the same. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that story, because yeah, I feel like in my little community, there's a lot of Hispanos and Latinos, so I don't feel a lot of it either. But, when you kind of go outside the bubble is kind of when you start seeing a little like, oh, this stuff happens.
Oh, yes, and it happens a lot. Early on, I started working for a nonprofit helping the Hispanic community. And then when I was in the bank, everyone was asking what part of Mexico I was. So I had to put, I'm from Chile or Chilean signs all around my desk. It was like, oh, come on, people. You don't know anything past Mexico. It's like many countries to the south of Mexico. So, but yeah, it's that part was not easy, but I'm very fortunate that I've been able to be involved with the Hispanic community here in North Carolina. the influx of Latinos moving to North Carolina has been very, very big in the past 20 years. So I've seen the change, and I've seen how much education is needed, how much help in needing attorneys, needing the medical attention, and going with interpreters, or the children being the interpreter for their parents. So yeah, it is a lot going on. And like I like to tell you something. I know you mentioned going through my past, my present, but without education, it's like we need to have a big push for not only like education in general, but for everyone that comes here to the US. Make sure you learn English. Tell your parents, tell your family that English is the way to progress. And let me tell you something else. I'm coming to the US. I'm just 26 years old, and I'm with this big ego that I'm a ingeniero comercial from the Catholic University of Chile. And the first thing people ask, Chile, oh, the same like you eat, Chile. It's like, no, Chile is a country. So there you go. You need to start from the bottom. So I started working as a receptionist, even though having a 5-year college degree, because in Chile you go to college for 5 years. So let me ask you, do you know that the sun is coming right? Does it look too bright? Because I can close the
if you
blinds.
want to, I can still see you. You look fine. I guess if you go a little closer, if you go further, it kind of looks blown out because more of the sun gets on your face.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Comfortable.
move. I was not expecting that change, but anyway, sorry. I think that's better. And I was getting blind with the sun. Sorry about that. But when I came, even though having a college degree, it almost meant nothing, because I had to start from the bottom. You can tell, I grew up, I didn't speak English growing up. I learned as classes passes on the high school. But when I moved here, soon after I realized without a good English, I'm going to be always at the bottom. So when I tell people that they're not learning English, it's like, if you want to improve in your life, that's the first thing you need to do, is learn English. And I think I gotten a lot better in the past 20 years, but I always have to say, well, if you don't understand me, ask me again. If I'm making a mistake, when, like I was saying, I'm going like a chicken without a head. And people were like, what? No, like a chicken with a head cut off. So learning all those colloquialisms and all of that, but I say, it's okay if I make a mistake, just correct me. And I always ask, laugh with me, don't laugh at me, because I'm here. This is my second culture, my second language, so I'm not perfect. But it's it's been a challenge having an accent. I got to be a branch manager, and people with a lot less education will come, return my money, or what happened? Why are you charging this fee? And they'll say, I need to talk to the manager. And I will show up and I say, I stay with the manager. It's like, I'm the manager. How can they put you here? You even have broken English. It's like, it's not just the English. There's something in here that why they put me as a man. Oh my gosh. I feel like all throughout my career, it's been that constant fight to prove myself that I'm smart, that I can learn fast, and that just because I have a broken English doesn't make me stupid. And some people think that when you have an accent. So yeah, that's kind of the past of my story.
And I feel like a lot of people that are born here in the United States don't necessarily encounter that, right? We grow up learning English, and so by the time we're out of middle school or high school, or even, you're así chiquitita, you already have a good accent, and people aren't thinking that just because of the way you're speaking that you're necessarily stupid, right? And like, as we see with Lorena, she got her education from a super prestigious university back in her country, comes here, and due to the lack of not being able to speak English fluently, kind of gets put down and feels that she needs to, rise to the occasion and continuously prove that she is smart enough and educated enough to hold these powers of position. I mean, these positions of power, like the manager of a bank. So, and can you tell us now, Lorena, then moving on, now you're into the financial independence movement. Like, how did you find that?
Oh my gosh. Well, let me tell you, even though my background is in finances and I went to college and all of that, I did not know much about personal finances. And here I'm blame a little bit my husband. He's American and he didn't know anything about IRAs. So for the all my time working in the nonprofit in the beginning, I have like 7 or 8 years where I thought that the social security discount that you get out of your paycheck, that's all it mattered for your retirement. He didn't have an IRA. Nobody told him about opening an IRA or a 401k. And then it wasn't until I started working for the bank that someone mentioned, take advantage of the matching. And the advice was so basic. Just save them to the match. Just save just 6%. No one told me that I could save 10% or it was okay or allowed, or the goal to be 20 maxing out your 401k. I didn't know anything. So we have been good at savings, but not in the very intelligent way. So like just putting the money in a savings account for a rainy day. So we had that part covered. But 2 years ago, we moved to a bigger house, making the mistake of upgrading, which if I had known what I know now, I would have not moved. But anyways, I'm already here. But we kept our house, our previous house, thinking that, oh, we can rent it out as long as the rent pays the mortgage, we are okay.
Right.
Mistake. That's not what you need. So we became landlords pretty much by accident, and we made all the mistakes in the books, all of them. We didn't refinance. We had a very large mortgage payment, and there was one day where the house kind of was rented for a year, and then it will be a month or 2 empty because it was a kind of a big house, and people were using it as a stepping stone because it was in a good location and it was a good house. But I didn't know that. I didn't know all the strategies of what type of houses make a good rental. And there's one day that I'm telling my husband, that's it. This is the last time we rent a house. We are selling this house. And next summer, so it was a few months. And somehow through, I believe, Facebook, there was an ad on a weekend to learn about real estate. And it was one of those classes where there's the hype and there's so much emotion and you still learn. But then at the end of the third day, they want you to sign like a $50,000 coaching program.
Yeah.
So I was like 5 minutes, literally 5-10 minutes from signing, and something told me inside of me is do not sign. So when I came home that evening, I was so excited about the potential of real estate for you to get this financial independence via passive income. I had no idea about all these strategies and all of that, but something told me that spending $50,000 in that program wasn't the right decision. And I started Googling about them, and oh my gosh, so much bad information came that I was, thank you, guardian angel, for not letting me sign. But that Google search brought me into Bigger Pockets, the big community for real estate investing. And I started consuming information. I listened to my first podcast ever. It was the Bigger Pockets Money. And actually they interviewed Brad and Jonathan from Choosify. And Choosify, I thought it was very relatable because they were two normal people. They had their education, just like me, different fields, but they were thinking about life in a different way, not your regular going into the hamster wheel that we all hear about. And because that's what we had. We were in that, not spending every penny. We've been really good at savings, but not investing, not thinking strategically what we wanted. So I started consuming information, and I know this is pretty much what happened to everyone that finds about the financial independence movement. It's like drinking from a fire hose. It's like so much, and you want to do this, you're going to do points, you want to do invest real estate. So it's like I started learning, and then I kind of paused and said, okay, let me keep learning a few things and making a few changes here and there. But there was something, this is a really good part of the story. As I started making all the changes, the typicals, cooking more at home, going to the supermarket with a list, cutting down cable, switching my cell phone from the big store to like Mint Mobile, and you name it, all these little changes, calling insurance and all of that. After 6 or 8 months of making all these changes, in January of 2020, there was this huge moment where I told my husband, you won't believe what happened. And he's saying like, what? We can live in one salary. And he couldn't understand. So what? It's all the changes we've been making. We can live in my husband's salary, and now all my salary, because I was working at the bank, all my salary now it can become our investment money. Like if we play all the pieces right, we could be buying a house like every 18 to 24 months. We save our salary, we max out, we were gonna max out 401k and his TPS, and he works for the government. So we were maxing out his retirement, mine, and then save, and every probably 2 years we could buy a little house. Okay, this amazing. I could not believe it. I was so excited. And a month later, this is February 2021, I get the pink slip. My bank is merging with another bank and my position is terminated. So it's devastating. We're like, oh my gosh, I had all this plan. I was going to be working probably 10 more years, to the point we could have 10 houses. And all of a sudden they pulled the rug underneath me. And it's like, what am I going to do? It's like, now I'm not going to have a salary. But everything happens for a reason. Then I realized that the month before, I had discovered that we could live in one salary.
Right.
So at that point, it's like the whole universe of opportunities happened. And I started, of course, I went through a little bit of a depression. I didn't know what to do with my life, what skills I have learned the past 12 years, how I could apply them. But having this freedom, because my husband was still working, allowed me to find myself little by little and decided what I wanted to do with my life. So having the opportunity, the freedom, the time that we had that rainy day fund, that we had to rental houses, allowed me not to take the first job that came to me out of desperation, which is a blessing that not many people have. So it opened a world of opportunities. So that's kind of how my story being and how I discovered financial independence.
Right. Give me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about, so ya estamos llegando to the end of our time, and so we want to plug in a little bit about, your podcast, because you have a podcast that you've made entirely in Spanish for the Latino community so that they can start learning about financial independence and different things that they can apply in order to, reach financial independence, and just learn about finances, especialmente, if they themselves are immigrants and don't necessarily know, how the USA financial system works. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yep. And that's a really good segue. And so what happened in during that search, and since I was consuming so much information in English, and it kept coming to me, it's like, but we need to have this information in Spanish. Our community, especially those that feel better speaking in Spanish, can take advantage of all of this, because even though if some people, because may not have a good social, may not open a 401k in some places, or they may be scared, still the ideas of saving, living below your means, cutting down your cell phone, your cable, cooking at home, all of that are ideas that we can, absolutely anyone in the whole world can benefit from. So, but I had this burning sensation that we need to have this in Spanish. So through Choosify, I was able to take a class. I was helping them translate documents like a volunteer. And so when the time come for them to sell this class, actually they gave me scholarship to learn podcasting for free. And I thought I was going to be kind of the Choosify en Español voice, but they told me, no, you can be your own voice. And that's how the concept of my podcast, De Peso a Peso, came from. It's from my desire to have this information in Spanish. And so I started in February of this year on my anniversary of moving to this country. And I already have 17 episodes out, and there are many more coming. It is a struggle with dealing with working, because I'm working. I need to also tell you that I'm so happy that a nonprofit that helps people with their finances here in town, they didn't have anyone bilingual, and I reached out to them. So, what are you doing for the Hispanic community? And say, oh, we're applying for a scholarship, for a grant, and they got the grant, and they hired me to be their bilingual money person, sorry, went blank on the name, bilingual financial counselor. So I'm working part-time with a nonprofit, so I get to help for free. In the meantime, I'm developing also the idea of becoming a money coach for those that can pay, but I get for free through the nonprofit, and having the podcast out, where is that voice that is from one to many, where no one has to pay for listening to those concepts. So that's where the idea came from. And now I'm 17 episodes in. I'm planning more, and I interview Maribel. So she's going to be in one of my podcasts, y todo en español. As soon as I get to edit, that's where my main issue is, like finding all the time to do all the things I'm doing. I do volunteer work here in the community. I recently was chosen to become a board member for a very prestigious nonprofit Hispanic organization in town. So life is good, Maribel. After all the struggle, I feel like I'm in my element. I'm helping people where it does not matter my accent, because when someone calls my organization, they can reach someone in their own language. And I've been translating all their documents and postcards and everything, so they know that this organization has someone that can assist them. So it's good. I'm really, really happy.
And I think that's so great. I think that's super great. And thank you so much for coming on the IG Live. And thank you so much for creating all the content, todo el contenido en tu podcast to reach out to those Spanish-speaking families. And to any of you guys that have, parents and familiares that speak Spanish and who you want to delve this information to, but, everything's in English, go ahead and have them listen to Lorena's podcast, the Peso a Peso podcast. And I believe it's like on Apple and other platforms. You guys can go visit her IG, her Instagram account, and she plugs in her podcast right there, and she just put it right there down in the comments. And if you guys are rewatching this in live, let us know if you guys learned anything, because we will be looking at the comments after this, even when it goes live. Thank you so much, Lorena, for joining us, and thank you so much for creating all this content in Spanish. So you guys already know, if you guys need any Spanish, English content, feel free to come over to Our Wealth Matters. And if you guys want to listen to it in podcast form, go over to Lorena's podcast, De Peso a Peso. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Lorena.
Muchas gracias. Adiós.
Adiós, Lorena, que tenga un buen día.
Gracias.